Hey, good evening is when I'm filming this. And I thought just for a quick video, I'd go over some of my vintage magazine collection. I'm a big collector of vintage things, and magazines are one of the main things I collect. I find them really fascinating. They're like, even better than the internet, a great sort of like time capsule of exactly when they came out. It's exactly what was happening in the world in that month in whatever sort of genre the magazine is about. I thought actually today my just a few of my collection of the Twilight Zone magazine, which was a magazine that ran in most of the 80s, maybe like 80 to like 89. So yeah, pretty much most of the 80s. Named after the eponymous series, The Twilight Zone. Uh, it was officially licensed by the Rod Serling estate. I think his family had a hand in creating it. And what it was a magazine in the spirit of the old Twilight Zone series. So it mainly focused on original fiction, or so fantasy, horror, and sci-fi. Mainly the horror and sci-fi. Uh, but I think what's really cool about it, and I think something that people don't know, is that a lot of like short stories that you might know are novels or the first chapters of famous 80s work by people like Peter Straub, Anne Rice, Stephen King, was published first in the Twilight Zone magazine. I just find that really cool to find some of these short stories in their original published form. It also featured contemporary reviews of horror, fantasy, and sci-fi books, music, and movies. I think it's really funny to read the reviews of movies we sort of now consider classics that their reviewers did not particularly like. They didn't care for Return of the Jedi at the time, which is really funny. Or the John Carpenter's The Thing, which is personally one of my favorite movies. They hated it, but it's so fun to see stuff like that, as well as there's a lot of articles about the making of the original Twilight Zone series, which is really fun. A lot of his collaborators, Rod Serling's collaborators, were still alive at the time in the 80s. So there's a lot of great stories about putting the show together. And each issue actually has a full script of a famous episode, which is, I imagine, at the time especially invaluable for fans of the series. So, really great magazine. I have probably, I'm looking, I have a small collection right on my lap right now, but I'm looking over here where my entire collection is, and I probably have 30 or so issues of it. And it's just great. Especially love the covers, which are, evocative and spooky and eerie and disquieting. Just this type of art you can get lost in. And some beer ads on the back, of course. This one from 81. There's an interview with George Romero, director of Dawn of the Dead, which is really cool. This is a great issue. My covers sometimes fall off, but this is where the first publication of Stephen King's The Jaunt was, his short story. Great short story. If you'd like Stephen King, you'd probably consider it one of his best. Most people do. Here's a cool one. Got a interview with Peter Straub. The monsters are due on Maple Street. It's got the script in there. It's one of the best episodes of The Twilight Zone. I think most people agree with that. Ooh, and beautiful ad for Excalibur, a great Arthurian film. Uh, yes, here they've got a review that Stephen King wrote, a preview of The Thing, which, like I said, they ended up not liking, but is personally one of my favorite films. And great. I think this is maybe actually the first issue I ever bought. I was, absolutely taken in by that cover. It's so cool. And that's from, 82. Another novel, or beginning of a novel by Peter Straub. Seven Sinister New Tales on the set of Creepshow with George Romero and Stephen King. Great horror movie of the 80s. Interview with Terry Gilliam about Time Bandits, and preview of Dark Crystal. Those of you who like Jim Henson probably know that one. Oh yeah, this one's got fiction from Joan Aiken, Harlan Ellison, and Ramsey Campbell, who, if you're a fan of, late century horror fiction, those are names that are gonna, tickle like your tickle your brain and be like, ooh, I should see what's in here. So yeah, those just a small selection of some of the stuff I have. Thanks.